So for today, I have a rather involved project. It took me quite a while to complete this. And as you can see here, I started with a dress form. I found this at a second-hand store. It has a strong wooden structure, but the body itself is made from styrofoam. And it has a fabric cover on it. It has a little nick on the bottom, which needs to be fixed, but otherwise it's in good condition. Then I have this old saw blade my hubby gave me, and I thought together this would look rather cool. But the blade is very heavy, so I don't think the styrofoam form would really support it well enough. So I created this little stand, and I'll show you how I put it together. It was a cheese cutting board, and I cut it apart, and then I added a very sturdy piece of cardboard just to give it a back edge. I added the piece of wood, which is upright here, and I connected it with a metal connector there. It has some screws in it, it has some glue, and I think it will be rather strong. And then the idea is to attach the saw blade to the stand and then put it together this way. That way the form does not have to carry the weight. So those were my preparations, which, yes, I did off camera because a lot of it was done in my garage. And here I cover everything with a coat of black gesso. Now, like I mentioned earlier, this project got quite involved. It has a lot of details. I had to wait often, so in between, for things to dry. So it took me over a week to complete. And that's one reason why I will present it to you in two parts. This being the first one, and in exactly 1 week, next Friday, I will post part number 2. In order to center the saw blade more easily, I first glued it down with E6000 and then used a wooden bead and a screw to tightly attach it to the post, and it should be very strong. You can see here that the bead is just the right distance to support the dress form as well. So up to this point, I prepared the project already during the summer, but then it was standing on my shelf and I really didn't do anything with it until just last week when I finally had the ideas of how to complete it. So as you can see here, I start with some texture paste and an old clock spring for the center, and then I will add lots of little bits and pieces like broken jewelry. There are some charms, some bottle caps, some screws, things like that. Now I use texture paste instead of glue, as sometimes it is just easier and faster, especially if you have to attach tiny things. I just recently was able to replenish my supply of broken jewelry bits and pieces, so I have a nice variety to work with. I really enjoy working with metal, and most of my components on this project will be metal pieces. So here you can see what my formation of doodads looked like. It went around the circle and then off the blade. I also added texture paste to those little edges of the blade. And I used the paste as well to fix that little nick at the bottom of the dress form. Now, aside from small bits and pieces, I also will incorporate larger metal items like this garden arch. It belongs in a flower pot for decoration, and I took it and bent it out of shape so I can use it as a sash, as it will give the dress form a bit of movement and some extra interest. I also have these two bones from an old Halloween skeleton. You can see it's the hip bone and part of the rib cage, and together they fit perfectly around the middle of my dress form. So I use two wires to attach these to each other, and with the help of some glue to also attach it to the form. Now from here on, I believe that you can follow very easily what I use and how I attach it. I will of course mark it in the captions so you know what I'm working with. So please enjoy a little bit of music, and I will talk to you in a wee bit. So let me show you where I'm at with everything. Here the top is pretty much dry by now. Here on the bottom I added also some more jewelry bits and pieces. I also added texture paste to the rim, and that needs a little more time to dry completely. Now for the dress form, I added a few pieces off camera, and let me show you that as well. So here at the very top, I used a ring. It has a stone in the front, and I had to open it in the back to make it fit. Underneath it, I used a metal napkin ring for kind of a collar. Then some jewelry pieces here in the middle, a little metal bird, which is perching right there. And then on top of the spoon or the shoulder, I used broken earrings. These were very moldable, so they gave me a nice shape. Here in the back is a chain, another broken earring, and a few simple ring shapes which I attached on top of the sash, maybe something else in the middle later on. Here on the arms, I added the top of two old-fashioned fountain pens, some cabochons, and the other shoulder also has a broken earring with a nice texture. And here you can see that I covered the wire with some thin chain. I also added more texture paste to the very bottom. Now in my stash I also have a small container of ear studs, and they still have the little pin, so I decorated a bit more with those. They were easy to attach because they just poke into the material, although later on I secured them with some glue as well. So there are some jewels. Over here are some rose shapes, and then some tiny ones right between the little fence skirt. So this brings me to the end of part 1. I hope you enjoyed it so far, and you will join me for part 2 to see the completed project. Until then, bye bye for now.